and welcome everyone. I would like to welcome you all to this first of a series of seminars organized by EAMBES, the European Alliance for Medical and Biological Engineering and Science. The goal of this series of seminars is to create awareness on EAMBES activities and also on important hot topics in our field, such as green transformation, sustainable innovation, translation to industry, gender balanced and inclusive research and innovation environments. And this is actually where we start today with our first webinar on gender equality and STEM careers. If you can please forward the slide. And today we have with us three very successful women scientists, biomedical engineers working in the field for quite a few years. And they're going to discuss and talk to us about their experiences and their, well, I would say knowledge in the area of gender balanced and inclusion in the field of medical engineering. Our first speaker and co-organizer in this webinar is Manuela Appendino. She's a biomedical engineer with an experience in medical devices, in cardiology and smart wearables. And now she, for latest years, she's working as an independent technical advisor for general surgery, bioethics and gender quality. And she's actually a clinical biomedical engineer in Italy. Our second speaker, Mercedes Barashina, is a telecommunications engineer specialized in biomedical engineering, and she's working in the industry for more than 12 years. And right now she's part of IBM, leading the innovation lab. Finally, Anna Stefane, who is a biomedical engineer with experience in the medical devices industry. And she's a senior project manager in the patient-centered technology practice in Alina Health Company in Canada. Before I give the floor to Manuela, Mercedes, and Anna, I would like to say a few words about who we are in EAMBES and what we are going to discuss here today. So first, I will explain very briefly what EAMBES is, and then we will hear about our co-organizer of this webinar, We Women Engineers. And we will have an overview of the medtech sector in Europe and in US. You can see the rest of the agenda, how it goes. We will discuss barriers in medtech, then talk about women in leadership and the medtech gap, and have an overview of programs for gender equality, both in Europe and in US. And an Italian example from Turin and Milan. In the end of this webinar, we will have a poll, a very quick poll, very short poll, and I will ask you to answer very few questions, and then we will see the results and discuss them. During the webinar, you can place any questions you have. Under the Q&A section, you can see that in the top bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A area where you can use it and place your questions, which we will gather and discuss them in the end of the webinar. So to start with, I would like to remind to any of you who haven't heard about EAMBES that EAMBES is a non-profit scientific society founded almost 20 years ago. It brings together national and international biomedical engineering societies, but also academia and institutions with interest in this field. Also for distinguished individuals, we have a fellow divisions. Now, the goal of EAMBES is to speak with one voice, especially in European policy affairs, and to make possible the European collaboration in an area as wide and fragmented as biomedical engineering. We have a number of activities. If you like to go to the next slide, please. So we have a number of activities, and we mainly try to support and promote research, development, education, and training programs, and also abide with the Sustainable Development Principles of the United Nations and WHO. With our work, we try to recognize both individual and group achievements in the area of biomedical engineering and science. And thus, via this, we try to become and create a strong voice within Europe and in the world, promoting biomedical engineering aspects. Our main daily activity, I would say, is to work within the European policy affairs and try to promote biomedical engineering issues there. To do that, we use a lot of collaborations we have with key policymakers in the biomedical engineering field and other fields within Europe and worldwide. So this seminar, this first seminar, webinar of the series, is organized together with We Women Engineers. And I would like to give the floor to Manuela so that she can further present what they do in this association.
Thank you so much, Eleni, because your support and presence is very important for us. It's a new experience, our first experience. I am very proud to stay with you because I represent We Women Engineers Association. We Women Engineers Association is an Italian association composed by not only biomedical engineers, but also clinical engineers, mostly women, students and workers, including PhD students, researchers, and other professionals in the field of medical devices. I started this experience with a simple blog 7 years ago with Anna, and until 2 years ago, we have become an association, and we following 3 main pillars. The first involve us like promote the activities and different projects to disseminate with people, with citizens, the characteristics of biomedical engineers in the society, especially about our role like professionals. We are committed in improving the representation of biomedical engineers in the healthcare sector, given their knowledge and experience to address and manage health technologies topics, especially because we need to share our network, our commitment, not only with other colleagues, but involving other institutions and other associations, not only in Italy, but in the world. The second pillar represents gender equity and equality because our team is composed by 80% women, but is committed in promoting and sustaining gender equality through the medtech sector, and especially for healthcare decision-making processes. And the third represents our activities, especially for our future, because we following a STEAM study and careers. We promote the study of STEAM topics. STEAM is a new new acronym that represent science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. We worked a lot with different schools, and we created a lot of events through training, webinars, and other activities to promote the orienting to young people to enter in biomedical market. This is our first book that bring with me, and the next slide, please. This slide is very important because we try to match our goals and our initiatives that involve us together, especially because we following key priorities to address our activities, especially to grow as a community of people with common interest, engaging with colleagues and other organizations from many professions, and forming one voice which speaks with authority on the status of a profession, and especially for our future. Because we prefer to work in not only with biomedical engineers, but with other professionals to increase the awareness of our role, to continue our effort to create not only the awareness, but support and educate people which are in key policy-making position within Europe on the nature and remit of our profession and its contribution to society, bring together professionals from both medicine and life sciences in STEM, subject to discuss the latest advances and challenges to influence decision and policy making inside Europe, especially enable networking among different academic, industry, and policy leaders, and encourage best practice across Europe, engage government, academia, and healthcare provider, industry, and wider public to build bridges across all sectors, and promote the impact of engineering inside healthcare through the organization national, European, and international events, conferences, and other scientific meetings. I concluding this slide, and I leave the floor to Mercedes Barakina, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Manuela. Okay, so with this, we would like to introduce some figures about the medtech sector. So basically here you have a map summarizing those numbers. So Europe has an important part of this sector, representing the 26%, being a competitor for Asia Pacific, especially for China and Taiwan. But you can see here that the highest representative zone or area for the medtech sector is North America, with almost 40% of the global market. The rest of the world is only representing 10%. So you can see clearly here that the players are North America, Europe, and Asia Pacific. We have tried to highlight in the next 2 slides some figures about the European Union and also about United States, to compare about the GDP, the number of businesses related to the sector, the number of employees that are working in this industry, and yeah, basically the amount of money that they are generating in the market. It's important first to start defining what is the medtech. Okay, so the World Health Organization defined the medtech as the application of knowledge and skills in the form of tools, medicines, procedures, and systems developed to solve a health problem and improve the quality of people. So with this definition, we can include here all kind of device development, for example, of kind of drugs development to improve the quality of specific diseases. So in Europe, this sector, this industry represents around 11% of the gross domestic product. This is expanding and extending every year. considering also that the number of companies related to this sector are increasing. During the last 5 years, it has increased heavily, and now it has around 35,000 companies related to this sector. And it's important to highlight that those companies are not big companies. They are what it's called SME, small and medium enterprises. So you can imagine the challenges that those companies are facing, but also the big opportunities that they face in this industry. As I mentioned, they are representing around 26.4% of the world market. Here the numbers can change because sometimes, depending on the report, this information has been extracted from the MedTech European report. Depending on the report, they are considering the device technology development in the sector or outside the sector, so that's why the numbers are different sometimes. So this industry in Europe represents 160 billion of euros. So you can understand that this market is increasing yearly, and it's important to support the activities that are behind this industry. And of course, how many people is behind the scenes working in the medtech industry? We have 850,000 employees, and this is increasing with all the companies that has been created, especially during the last 5 years. So with this, we would like to continue the comparison, checking those figures, but in the United States. Those figures are different. You can see that the GDP representation of this sector for United States, it's around 16%, and it involves 6,500 companies. So you can see that the number of companies here is much more reduced than in Europe. But the percentage of the small and medium companies is similar. It's around 95%. So again, the trend is similar here. The small and medium companies facing challenges, but also taking advantage of the opportunities in the market. In terms of how many money they generate for the market, they are generating around 282 billion of euros. In this case, information has been extracted from a McKinsey report related to medtech, and it's employing 1,100,000 employees. So the sector is important in the United States, and it's also increasing considerably as in the European Union. So with those figures, we would like to continue discussing about the barriers that can be faced in this industry. So as I mentioned, this is an expanding sector, but there are multiple challenges. And we would like to start discussing about the regulations. So the medtech industry is heavily regulated to ensure patient safety. That is obvious because of many reasons, but navigating complex and evolving regulatory requirements, such as FDA approvals in the United States, consumes a lot of time and create a lot of costs. For example, in Europe, we have a very relevant topic, protecting the personal data, representing with the GDPR law. This is also causing different costs for the companies that are working in the European industry. We mentioned before about the development of different devices associated with different technologies. So, of course, developing and bringing new medical technologies to the market is expensive, and it has a high upfront cost. And sometimes this can be a barrier to enter in the medtech industry. So, especially for the startups, for the small and medium companies. Once those devices are developed, once we have gotten all the funds to develop our technological devices, it's important also to consider the market access and the adoption of those devices, because convincing healthcare providers to adopt those new technologies, those new devices, can be challenging sometimes. So hospitals and clinics may be resistant to change, particularly if the technology requires training, requires cost for specific activities, and also change the way in which they are working right now. Of course, all those products, all the technology has a clinical validation phase behind it. So demonstrating that the product is safe and it's efficient. It's gone through a rigorous clinical trials, and this again consumes time and is costly. All the information behind those developments is related to the intellectual property and also to patent issues. So protecting the intellectual property in this sector is crucial for companies to recover their investment. Now there is a big pressure to generate new patents, to generate new products associated to those new patterns, and to get benefits from them. So patent disputes and the need for licensing agreements can be barriers to entry for some of those companies. And finally, the ethical problems, ethical and social concerns. MedTech innovation can raise ethical and social concerns, such as, for example, the ones related to the use of artificial intelligence that it's now being discussed by world leaders on how to restrict it, how to control it, and especially how to make that the results are directed to get the best for the patient, for the user, for whoever is the end user, and avoid any kind of challenge and misunderstanding in those results. So the decision making in healthcare could be a challenging issue, or the genetic edition technology are topics that are in the table right now, and this is something that should be discussed heavily by the organisms. So with this, we have tried to summarize the barriers. So I hand over to Anna, I think. Yeah, Anna, you are here.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mercedes. So at this point, we wanted to introduce the women in leadership topic. So giving like a broad, overview about what's happening now in the world, and we take like as examples US and Europe. So at this moment throughout the world, the men tend to occupy 65 to 95 of leadership roles. Even as we can see in the left, I will show some data just to give like a context to everybody. We can also share the slides after this webinar, so you can check it out, also the sources where we collected this data. So we can see that in US, for example, we have the data about the master's degrees earned throughout the time between men and women, that shows a growing trend for women, while still in the corporate leadership, we have a very low representation. We can see like one example is the one index that is the 500 Fortune CEOs. We still see one number, one figure, like 60%. Sometimes they show 10%, while at the beginning of 1990s we had 0% of representation of women in that index. This is interesting, because women represent more than a half in US and almost half of the workforce in Europe. And still, we see that the women held only a 35 or even less percentage of the senior leadership positions. We see this increase. So in the third picture, you can see the little increase between 2016 and 2021. And so I think that this is a very interesting situation that we are facing in this moment. What we see, what we wanted to check if this is happening also in the medtech STEM gap. So in the medtech STEM sector, as Mercedes presented, we face different difficulties in this sector. And the lack of appropriate number of women leaders in this sector is represented with different gaps. So here in this slide, we can see the different gaps that come from the less representation of women. This was very much important also during the COVID-19. So during the pandemic, we had also less representation of women during the task force that were presented, and this this could bring. So we can understand that we have a gap in terms of skills and experience. So there is an absence of diverse skill in this sector that diminish the richness and reduce the capacity to effectively address clinical technological challenges, as we saw in the previous slides. There is also a problem with having less people, having less diverse people, and we are talking now about women, that provides a point of view in the clinical research, technological innovation, and also decision-making process, can make this sector a little bit poorer, just because it's a very sensitive sector, and we face a very important, innovation, very important problems that relates to the healthcare of people. On the other side, relatively to the job in general, we see a decrease of female employment that contributes to our underrepresentation. And then, of course, the pay gap that is very, very much known. So there is insufficient compensation, and this leads also to underrepresentation of this specific quote of people. Here we underlined two important points that are related to medtech. So in medtech, we have only 15% of all the startups working in the intersection between medicine and technology are led by women, and just the 23% of top executives in the world, 100 largest medical device companies are women. This is also represented, as you can see, in this in the left graphic, that is it's like a global gender gap report from World Economic Forum. So we can understand that there is less representation for women, while in the right side, I think it's very important to show the difference between the male and female research team that can lead to create new innovation. So if you can see in the graphic, the lower line represents the women the female majority teams. So we have only 16.2% of women that are contributing to the creation of new innovation in the medtech sector. So this could lead to a male-dominated focus somehow, and so focus the medical needs of men. As you can see, we can share the slides, so because there are a lot of information, but I wanted to explain that this could lead, as we can see in the lower part of this slide, that there are more, there is a problem in the data. So there, for example, the ratio of prevalence of diagnosis based on epidemiological data sources in US, we see a difference between the diagnosis between men's health condition and women's health condition. This is only a little example. You can find a lot more in the industry. So this research could lead to different problems also in the data, and then this could affect also diseases and diagnosis of diseases. We also found some information about why we had this gap for the part of the leadership. So why there are some barriers? What are the barriers for the senior leadership for women? And we had some data from US and some data from Europe. In the medtech sector, we found that there are some barriers in that held the women in higher standards. Then there are the well-known work-life balance. So sometimes as there are no much helps, or there are difficulties in managing the families and house commitments. This could be reflected also in the work life. There are few role models, and there is a few representation in the workforce, as we saw in the data. We know that there are some stereotypes that could lead to a barrier for the women to step and to arrive to bigger roles. And this point, it was very interesting to me. It's like the exclusion of women in the network of influence. So as for many years, the men held like the top management position. There are few connection for women. So this creates a big barrier for women. At the end, we want to understand, to show what are the benefits, because actually there are a lot of benefits in having women in leadership, and now we have more number. Many important companies and entities are now collecting data, like the MIT, for example, McKinsey, and many consultancy companies now, and they are understanding much more. But not only, but Word is very focused on benefits and profitability, and this is a big point. So greater gender equity contributes to wider economic benefits, increased productivity, and improved development results. Exactly, McKinsey showed that the companies in the top quartile for gender diversity on executive team are 25 more likely to have above average profitability, and we will see later some numbers. We also have a benefit about having smarter problem solving, and this is very important for our sector, the medtech sector, because we need to look at the problems that we have in different point of views. There is more collaborations, because studies show that women are more inclined to collaborate with others. So in business, this translates in being better deals, having better deals with stakeholders and supporting colleagues, and also higher engagement. So teams with female managers are being shown that have higher rates of employee engagement, and so this leads to a better work, emotional support, well-being, and so a better dynamic inside the work hours. About the benefits, we can see here two graphics that are very important. So it's how what is the difference between the most profitable companies when they have more or less female directors or women in the leadership teams. In the left, we can see throughout the time that this is persistent from 1997 to 2017. So the team with female directors are more capable of having more profitable results. In the right side, we can see that more diversity can lead to bigger benefits. And this study of McKinsey show also that if with companies that have more than 30% women executives, were more likely to outperform companies that has less than 30 or 10%. So they found also this trigger point. So I pass over the word again to Manuela to show the different indexes that we are studying in Europe about this gender gap.
Oh, thank you, Mercedes and Anna, because it's so important to share this information from our biomedical Word's biomedical market. But I started with a question, because I thought about how we can improve this bias by these specific instruments. For example, we seen from excellent presentation there are different types of biases and difficulties, both in entering into the world of work and in defining one's own career, and try to maintain or create a work-life balance. And it is necessary to share our experiences, share the important information, because for other women, especially for other young people, it is necessary to increase the awareness inside. In Europe, there's a very important institute, EIGE. EIGE represents the European Institute of Gender Equality. And it's very important because monitoring gender environment and also other types of values linked, for example, to gender violence or equality between minorities, which perhaps create a practical score among European member states. that can use, that understand the type of path that this state member taking with gender equality, especially. In this case, I will share about specific tools that called Gender Equality Index. This tool permit to measure the progress of gender equality in Europe, and specifically per each state member, and was developed by this institute, and it gives more visibility to areas that need improvement and ultimately support policymakers to design a more effective gender equality measures and future politics. But I'm thinking that it's so important for us to share with you the type of the significance of equality, because equality does not mean that women and men will become the same, but the women's and men's rights, responsibilities, opportunities will not depend on whether they are born female or male. Gender equality implies that the interests, needs, our priorities of both women and men are taken into consideration, thereby recognizing the diversity of different groups of women and men. Gender equality is not women's issue, but should concern a fully engaged men as well as women. Between women and men, it seems both a human rights issue and precondition for, and it's so important because in this case represented the indicator of sustainable people-centered development in the world. On the left, as you can see, a score, an example of score of Italy in during this year. It's important, this percentage, because this percentage represents the 6 core domains, because the Gender Equality Index came from the unique measure tools to synthesize the complexity of gender equality, and working like a multidimensional concept. And in this case, the measures of gender gaps are adjusted the levels of achievement, for example, ensuring by regarding different situations, and consist of the 6 more domains, like work, for example, like money, knowledge, time, power, and health. These domains are so important because per each domain we refers to gender equality in a specific KPI. For example, inside the power, we refers to gender equality in decision-making position across the political, economical, or economic and social spheres. For example, we monitoring the percentage of minister, the member of parliament, or regional assemblies, for example. In the domain of time, we refers about allocation of people that spent for doing care, domestic work, or social activities. Or inside the money, for example, we refers and measures the inequalities in access to financial resources. In this case, this instrument, these tools is very important because that came from for example, percentage per each state members, like Eurostat, for example. We collected the data in a big database, and catch the different data and promote this graphic to represent the path per each state member. In this case, it was interesting to observe the wide disparity between the indices from the various states member, because, for example, some northern countries surpassing Southern and Eastern European states by more than 20 points, for example, and Sweden ranks first in the Gender Equality Index, like a score 82.2%, maybe maybe 20 points over than Italy, more. In this case, it's important to share not only the Gender Equality Index that represent the most important tool, but also a gender impact assessment, because across both tools, it's possible to estimate the different effects, like positive, negative, or neutral, of any policy or activity implemented to specific items in terms of gender equality. The next. Okay, for example, we observed in Italy 3 different experiences in Politecnico of Milano, Politecnico of Turin, and Campus Biomedico from Rome, especially about the representation of gender equality plans, because EIGE collect not only the data, not only the domain, but collect different tools from different environment, and especially for university, created a specific plans, JEPs, for help university to collect similar data, especially from different target, from different recipients from this plan, like staff, like lecturers, technical students, and by following the agenda of global goals. In the cases, it's possible to divide the document in main 4 areas, like gender policy and goals, objective. The second, like implementation strategies. The third, like process and prerequisites. And the fourth and the last, objective and related action. It's important because year by year, the documents changing and help the organization to try to increase the project, a specific project, and a specific KPI to maintain the path and involve in other action to help people to maintain a good environment inside the university. Like goals, the area that refers in on the left, these 5 areas are very important, because by EIGE, it's possible to select a specific area that you put inside the gender equality plans. There's a main area, the most important area. The first that called the work-life balance, because work-life balance is relevant for all members of staffs and involves ensuring that everybody is properly supported to advance their career alongside personal responsibilities that the men hold outside in the workplace, including caring responsibility. But it's important to observe the gender balance in leadership, especially for efforts to promote gender balance in leadership and decision-making have been undertaken in numerous countries. But it's so important to consider in gender equality inside the recruitment, for example, because selection and career progressions, there's important, because for us it is necessary to measure and to ensure that women and men get equal chance to develop and advance their scientific careers. And also the area 4 represents the integration of sex and gender dimension into research and teaching content. because in this case, it's very important to integrate the gender dimension inside the educational activities, including teaching curricula and public engagement. And the last but not the least, measures against gender-based violence, including sexual harassment, because it is necessary to create a type of measures to combat gender-based violence and, for example, sexual harassment, including behavior that violates an individual's dignity or that creates an intimidating or hostile or degrading or humiliating or offensive environment. The gender equality plans represent a specific strategies to increase the effort from university. And next slide, please. It's not unique tools, because, for example, in Europe, there's an important charter and code for researcher. This charter called EURACCESS, and promote the set of general principle and requirement which specifies the roles, responsibility, and entitlements of researchers, as well as of employers or founders of researchers, represent the framework, a concrete framework for researchers, employers, and founders, and increase the main goals about increase the responsibility, action, and create a better environment. The next, please. Okay, we talk a lot about Europe because in Europe there's a specifically policy, but if we refer from the word, we considering also the global gender gap. It's similar than gender equality index, because inside the global gender gap index framework, we considering 4 sub-index area like economic participation and opportunities, educational attainment, health and survival, and political empowerment. There's across a big 4 dimension, and it's interesting because the global gender gap score in 2023 for all 146 countries included the same percentage that we referred in Italy before, and considering the constant sample of the countries covered in the last edition, the overall score changed only from 68.1% to 68.4%. An improvement of 0.3 percentage point compared to last year's edition. This is not a good point for me, especially when we talking about a gender awareness from the word, but it is necessary to considering the concrete tools to help us to talk a lot about other projects and increase not only our network but the engagement for these topics. For us, our collaboration, it is not only important but necessary, because working together, we needed to create, for example, in Europe, an EAMBES observatory, because for us, it's important to talk with other women that working in biomedical fields, but not only with other students, with their experience, to consider in their experience and create other projects like a word, for example, for young professionals to increase their visibility, to increase their interest, or a startupper, for example, to increase the access to the labor market and increase simultaneously the biomedical data availability. By this idea, it is necessary to create not only historical data collection, but create other types of webinars to present the situation, stimulate and create other solutions. And for example, for us, it is necessary to open other channel. And if you have any questions or feedback or comments, it's possible to write to team.wewomenengineers.com and manager.eambes.org. Thank you so much. Okay, now I leave the floor to Eleni. Thank you, Eleni.
Thank you very much, Manuela, Mercedes, and Anna. And now, before we go into questions, if there are any, I can see that in the question and answer board, I cannot see any placed questions, but we can definitely proceed with our poll till you decide to ask some questions. You can see the poll in the screen. There are 4 questions. The first one is about how you get to know about this webinar. And please choose one of the answers there, either from the EAMBES website or our social media channels, the We Women Engineer social media channels, university social media channels, colleagues, friends, social networking, email, or other. Now, the second question is about the sector you work in. And we have some pre-defined answers there: medtech, clinical setting or healthcare, policymaker, for example, in EU, national government, etc., technology in general, student or other. Then the third question is asks your opinion. What do you think is approximately the percentage of women in leadership positions? Chief, head, director, manager, in the place of your work, in your environment, in your company. And we have some compartmentalized answers there: less than 10%, from 10 to 30%, 30 to 50%, majority are women, or you have no idea about it. And finally, the last question asks about your opinion on the solution to fill the evident gap. We have included only 3 because we can discuss a lot about that, but the only 3 options there for the moment is improve the gender policies, recruitment procedures that ensure equal chances, and increase the research about the gender topic. So if you please take a minute to answer these, and after that we can just see the results, and we can probably spend a few minutes to discuss them. Now, I can see that we have a comment in the question and answer section. It's not a question. Thank you, Amina, because you seem to find this webinar inspiring. And I hope that we can have more webinars like that and more opportunities to discuss about the situation, the current situation in the gender gap in science and engineering, and especially in biomedical science and engineering. And based on that, see what we can do to improve it. And I would like to take the opportunity while you're answering the poll to extend a big thank you to Kaliroi Stavrianou, who is actually the technical organizer of all this webinar. And she's right now working on the results of the poll. I guess probably we can see them. Okay, thank you, Roy. So it seems that most of you, well, most of you got to know about this webinar from the channels of the organizers, that is EAMBES and We Women Engineer. So that's but then there's some dissemination via colleagues, friends, social networking, which means that we sort of managed to get the seminar through in many channels and many ways. Now, in the second question, we have about a third of the audience working in medtech, and another third being students. We also have some clinical people from healthcare, which is around 13%, and technology as well, and other, but we don't have any policymaker, which means that probably we should disseminate more towards that area. Now, most of you answered that they think that the percentage of of women in their organization in leadership positions are some, that is 10 to 30%. And some of them place that to many. That's more or less what we see different surveys to portray. It's more to 10 to 30% rather than the majority, but it's good to see that some people have answered that the majority are women. However, there are a few answers that the women in their organization in leadership positions are very low, and that's 13%. Okay, and the last question, what solution would you propose to fill the gap? I can see people divided in all three of them, and I guess that probably says that all three of them should be followed, and even more, because we can use any tool and work in all fronts to manage and reach our goals. Ladies, I don't know if you would like to comment on these results as well, please.
Eleni, I think we have a question on a raised hand, I see.
Oh, okay. That's perfect.
I don't know if it was an error.
Yeah, probably this is the question that it's not a question, a comment rather, that the work you've done and what you presented to us is amazing and inspiring. So I would say congratulations to all three of you.
Thank you.
So if there are no other questions, and since we've hit our time limit of 1 hour, probably I would like again to thank all of you, both speakers and the audience, for being here with us today to hear about these very interesting findings on how women and men are doing in science and engineering, with emphasis on the biomedical engineering field. And please stay tuned because more webinars are coming in a variety of subjects, and we will come back to you with more invitations. Also, as the ladies promised, the slides will be available from both websites, I guess, both EAMBES website and the We Women Engineers website. So please have a look and especially visit the sources there, because the information provided is a lot, and there is nothing better than knowing what happens around us. So, thank you all.
Thank you so much, Eleni. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you
you
very
so
much.
much, Kaliroy,
Thank
for
you,
your
Kaliroy.
technical
Roy.
support.
Bye-bye.
And good night to everybody.
Good night.
Good
See you
night.
soon.
Bye-bye.
Night, see you soon.